In this video we dive into even more blueprints. By the end of the video you can expect to have a bomb which can be detonated with a button, a group of buttons which can change the colour of a mesh, and a consumable which spins around and goes up and down. If you're new to my channel and you're just dropping in on this video, I'm a game developer currently putting out Unreal Engine 4 and Blender content to help my viewers. If you have any tutorial requests, or you see anything on this list of topics that I'm covering that you're interested in, it would be so awesome if you dropped a sub. It really supports me putting out content. If you're just here for some quick knowledge on what I'm covering today, that's also cool. Regardless, I hope you enjoy the video. What's up guys, we're on episode 7 and we're going to start off this episode by giving you some free stuff. Check the description and I've got loads of more badass models for you guys, and that's what we're going to be covering over the next 2 days. So you made it through my blueprint episode. That was teaching you the basics and the boring stuff, but now you know that stuff. If you don't know that stuff, go back and watch it again. But if you do know that stuff, now we can start moving on to some cool things like bombs, traps, launch pads, that kind of stuff. So what we're going to start with is actually expanding our level. So I'm going to fast forward this bit. You guys feel free to copy me, but basically we're just going to copy the room we've got here and make another room for our blueprints and stuff. Okay guys, so we're all finished. I didn't show you exactly what I was doing because I'm pretty sure you guys are well equipped now to build your levels, and I didn't want to waste any time on the video. But all I want you to do is have your own room, but make sure you've got a couple of slots for blueprints. You should have 6 slots, and that will cover the 6 blueprints we're doing over the few days. If you're having any problems with lighting, make sure your light mass important volume and post-process volume are covering your entire level, because that will make it look a bit glitchy. Anyway, let's jump into these blueprints. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is import the assets I've got, download them in the description, and you can either import them down here or just click them all and drag them all in. Just make sure you're putting them into your mesh folder. Same as last time, do not create material, but your settings will actually save from the last time you imported something, so you don't need to do anything, just click import all and that will do all of them. So what I want you to do now is actually colour them in by double clicking on them and then going into their details and colouring them. You might have to make some more materials, it's completely up to you how you colour them, but I'll see you guys when they're all coloured in. So after you're done with that, delete everything on your screen. We don't actually need any of it right now, and what we're going to do is go into blueprints, right click, create a blueprint class, actor, and call this bomb. Double click to open it up. And then the first thing we're going to do is add a static mesh, and then choose which bomb you would like to use. I think I prefer the second one. I think it's got that sort of low poly, edgy vibe to it, so I'm going to go with that. The next thing we need to do is actually create a fuse particle system where it's on fire. So we're going to tab that there, go back onto the map, actually go under the starter content, particles, and then take these sparks, duplicate it and call it bomb fuse. This is what I was telling you guys about in the particle system episode. It's really easy just to duplicate some starter content particles and change it and adapt it into your own without starting completely new. So move that into your particle systems folder, then double click to open it up. So I chose the sparks particle system because it has a similar sort of fuse effect to what we're going for. So we don't need the smoke, so click on the smoke, delete that. Sparks. We don't need the sparks, all we need is the sparks burst. So the first thing we're going to do is delete the light tab. Then for color over life, we're going to change this to more of a fiery fuse effect. Then delete the size by life, and then increase the numbers spawned. So you're going to have to increase this to a value which suits you. As I've got my settings on low, I don't think it's spawning as many as you guys would see. So 30 might be spawning loads for you, but as you can see for me, it's only spawning 1 out of 5. So I'm just going to ramp this up to 100 until we've got that kind of spark effect. And that's us pretty much done for this. So close this and then go back onto your bomb. So now we're actually going to add that particle system, so type it in particle system at the top. You'll notice that it's already coming up with bomb fuse, and that's because we've actually got this selected in the content browser. So position that over the fuse. You can see that it's way too small, so I'm actually going to scale this bomb down. I'm going to detach the fuse first so that the fuse doesn't scale with it, and I'm just going to scale this bomb right down. Move this down. Okay, so it's still not looking quite right. So what we're going to do is go back onto the bomb fuse, change the initial size, put this on constant actually, and then do 50, 50, 50. Okay, that's nice and big now. So hopefully this will be looking, there we go, that's looking a little bit more cartoony and a little bit more like the effect that we're going for. Just move this into a better position still. Okay, it's not perfect, but you get the point. You can play around with it until you get it how you want, but that's just roughly what we're going to go for. So obviously, we don't want this fuse to be active as soon as we start as soon as the level plays. So go into details and type in auto, and then uncheck the auto activate. And that will actually stop it from activating, so we can choose when to activate it. Next, we're going to add another particle system, and this will be the actual bomb explosion. So just change bomb fuse to explosion. May need to load, but same again, go onto details and turn off auto activate. Maybe wait until it buffers and see what position you want, but after it's all done with that, uncheck auto activate. And the final thing we're going to add is a radial force. So go into your components, type in radial force, and this is basically just the pushback of the explosion. So change the force strength to whatever you want, 300 or something. A radial force will actually be able to destroy destructible meshes. That we'll do in the future. We're going to have a bomb destroy wall, but that's a few episodes down. Then we're going to uncheck auto activate because we don't want it firing that explosion impulse straight away. And then you can change the radius here however you feel fit. Okay, so that's us done on the components. Now let's go into the event graph and change some things around. But before we do that, just change this bomb fuse to explosion so we don't get confused. Okay, every time you're starting a blueprint, you need to think, how is this going to be triggered? How is this bit of code going to run? So you need to think of an event. We don't want it to explode when we start, we don't want it to be constantly exploding, and we don't want it to explode when we overlap it. We want it to explode when we send the trigger to explode. So we're going to make a custom event and just call this explode. Control, bring in the bomb fuse, and we're going to say activate. So this will start our particle system with the fuse. Then we're going to delay for 5 seconds. Then we're going to deactivate our fuse because we no longer want the fuse to be going if we're going to explode it. Then we're going to bring in the explosion particle system by control clicking it in. And then we're going to activate the explosion. We're then going to control drag in our radial force and say fire impulse. So this will tell the bomb to actually fire the impulse on the explosion. And then secondly, we want to destroy our bomb as we explode it. So control drag in the mesh and type destroy component. So this should be pretty much everything we need So let's go through it again. We're activating the bomb fuse, we're waiting 5 seconds, we're deactivating the bomb fuse, we're activating the explosion particle system, we're firing off the impulse to push things away and destroy meshes, and then we're destroying the bomb so it looks like the bomb's been exploded. So to actually explode this, I want to do it with a button. So bring in your bomb here, and then go onto your button and right click and duplicate it. Call this button bomb. You can actually make it so a single button can activate multiple blueprints, but it's kind of easier for me to explain if I just use a separate button for each blueprint. So it's going to be a bit tedious duplicating these buttons, but if you just bear with me, I think it'll be easier overall. So then open up your button bomb. Don't need the get all active class. All we're going to do is change this door moving split. I'm going to rename it to bomb explode. Change the variable type to bomb, whatever you called your bomb. Change variable type. Close this. Then delete the open doors, and we're just going to type in explode. So you guys should know exactly what we're doing now. So we need to go back onto our menu, click on our button, and use the drop down to click on the bomb. Okay, now we're just going to do a few finishing touches. So go back onto the bomb, and under static mesh, make sure you turn on simulate physics. This will mean the bomb can roll around and it won't be frozen in air. The second thing we're going to do is under radial force, we're actually going to tick under impulse velocity change. This will help the bomb push our character because it will actually impact the character's velocity. So now if we play this, when we press on our button, the fuse starts, it delays for 5 seconds, the bomb explodes with the particle system, and the radial force pushes the player away. Pretty cool. Let's move on. Now I'm going to show you how to change the material of something, but we're going to do it in a bit of a creative way. So the first thing I want you to do is bring in a static mesh of any kind. I'm just going to use a cube, but you can use anything. You can use a torch, you can use this block, you can use one of the traps I gave you in the pack, but I'm just going to use a cube. Now, once again, we're going to duplicate this button, and we're going to call it button color change. Then double click to open it up. So I actually want 3 copies of this blueprint, but I want them all to be different colors. Under begin play, we can then make a variable. Call this color. Change it to an int, and then compile, and check instance editable. So basically what we want to do with this integer is say, if the value equals 0, be the color blue. If it equals 1, be the color red. If it equals 2, be a different color. So on event begin play, we can drag this in with control and dragging. Then we can drag off this and type in equals, and then equals 0, that's good. Then make a branch by holding B and clicking. Then duplicate this twice. So select it all, then click Control W, Control W. Change this one to 1, change this one to 2, and then plug in your event begin play, and plug in the falses into the next one below it. So now if the color's 0, we'll do something, if the color's 1, we'll do something else, and if the color's 2, we'll do something else. So we can drag in our static mesh, drag off this and click set material. Then duplicate this with Control W, duplicate it again, Control W. You can delete the doors section. You can turn off this as well. Then plug in the true to this one, true to this one, and true to this one. So set material is a node which sets the material. It has to have a target, so which mesh is it going to change the material of, and then below it you can set the material here. So we're actually going to use our emissive colors for this. So for the first one, type in emissive blue. For the second one, emissive green. And then for the third one, emissive red. Now let's change the name of our variables so we know which number will be which color. So just put color dash blue, green, red. So blue 1, green 2, red 3. So now depending on what this integer is, depends what material the static mesh will be set as. And as we made this variable instance editable, if we go onto our map, click on the blueprint, we can change the integer here. So this one's 0, that's okay for blue. this one 1 for green, and this one 2 for red. So now if we play this, the materials have all been changed because they've all got a different value for the integer we made. Okay, so that's all well and good, but now when we walk over the button, we actually want the static mesh we've made here to change color depending which button we press. So we can actually copy what we've made here. When we overlap the button, depending what the integer value is for each of the blueprints, we can do different things. So just like the communication we talked about in the last episode, we actually need to make a variable referencing the static mesh. So just call this static mesh ref, then under variable type, type in static mesh, and then under static mesh actor, click object reference. Click instance editable again, and then compile. Now we're going to do the same thing we did over here with the static mesh inside the blueprint, but we're going to do it for the one we're referencing, which is this one. So we're going to pull off this and type in set material. Actually, instead of doing this, we can just copy all of 3 of these, plug all these in, and then plug the static mesh ref into the target, and it will automatically convert it to a static mesh component. But don't worry about that too much. So now all we need to do is put the eyedropper on the mesh we want to change, and now we should have it working. So let's see. Blue, green, red, green, blue. Pretty cool. Okay, so now we're done with that, let's move on to the consumable. So basically we're going to make a coin which rotates and moves up and down so it looks kind of cool. We're not going to actually do the consuming bit today, we're just going to get it in the level looking nice and fancy. So the first thing we're going to do is right click, create a blueprint class, create an actor, and call this coin. Double click to open it up and add a static mesh. Add the coin I made for you guys. Then go onto the event graph, and we're actually going to go under tick. So what we want to do is rotate it constantly. So we're going to bring in our static mesh, and we're going to pull off and add local rotation. So we need this to go constantly just in the z-axis, so it spins around. So what we're going to do is make a rotation. Oops, not this one. We're going to make rotator. So depending what values you put in the X, Y, and Z, depends how much you're going to be adding to that rotation. So what we can actually do is just plug this tick in, and then just put a 1 in the Z. So it's going to be adding a 1 to the Z rotation, and this is going to be firing off lots of times per second, so it's going to spin around. So if we drag the coin in our level now, then click simulate, we have a coin spinning around so far. So now all we need to do is make it move up and down to make it look like a realistic consumable. Before we make it move up and down, just go into your static mesh and uncheck cast shadows, just because when it spins around it's reflecting light and it doesn't look as good. So we can actually do the same thing as the rotation, but we can just do it to a local location. So if you pull off the static mesh and say add local offset, this will change the location. What we can do is do the same again, so make vector, and then if we put a 1 in here, it will increase 1 to the location, which is great. We've got it going up, but the only problem is now that it's never going to stop going up. So what we need to do is, when the z-axis gets to a certain value, we need to flip it round so then it starts going down in value. So we actually subtract 1 instead of plus 1. So the first thing I want you to do is just to duplicate this. Press Ctrl and then W when it's selected. So now we need a branch, which is basically an if statement, and then we need to make a variable. Call this up/down. Then plug this into here, and this will basically mean when the value is true, then we're going to plus on the Z. When it is false, we're going to minus on the Z. So now what we need to do is find a way to change this value when the z-axis has reached a certain value. And we do this again with another branch. So move to your right, press branch again, plug that in here, and what we want to say is when the static mesh, we want to get its relative location, we want to split this open so we have the X, Y, and Z. So right click, split struct pin, and then when the Z equals 50, we actually want to set the up and down by holding Alt and dragging it in to false. Then we want to do the same down here. So just select all that, then press Ctrl and W, plug it in, and now we want to set it back up to going up when the value is back to 0. So change that to 0, and then change this to true. So now we want it to begin by going up, so this needs to be true to begin with. And I think that's pretty much everything. Okay, so let me go through this from the start. The event tick is going to consistently fire off this event, and then we're going to be plussing 1 to the local rotation of the Z-axis, so it starts spinning off. We're only plussing 1, but as the event tick's firing off rapidly, it's going to keep on plussing 1, like that. Then, depending if the variable up-down is true or false, if it's true, which it begins as, it will plus 1 to the static mesh's Z location, and then when the static mesh's Z location gets to a point of 50, so it's going to keep on going up until it gets to 50, then when it's 50, up down is going to be set to false. So then if we go back, the event tick fires, as the up and down is now false, we're going to keep on subtracting 1 from the location until the static mesh's Z location is 0. Then we're going to set it back to true, so then it goes up again. So I hope that helps. We try it out now. It moves up until it gets to 50, then it moves down. So it's moving a bit too quick, so just going to change this to minus 0.5 and then change this to 0.5. And now I'd say that looks like a pretty damn good consumable. So guys, what I'm really trying to get across to you is that you can do anything with blueprints if you just think logically. Begin with the event, how is your blueprint going to start, and then progress through it sequentially. You really need to just practice loads of different blueprints, copy different blueprints, and then you'll slowly get the grasp of how things work. But that's all we're doing for this video. Tomorrow we've got some more exciting blueprints. We're doing launch pads and a few other things, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.